All right, well, hello everyone out there tuning in, and here is the first car. It's going to get our derby season going. It is a G6 convertible hardtop. As you can see, a little bit more of a unique body style. It's a two-door. You can see there on top is where it mounts. Talked to the derby promoters in our area, and pretty much all of them were perfectly fine with just going to weld right there, kind of where the top of the windshield after we strip it all out and the roof come together, just to make it a little bit more solid. But it shouldn't be an issue even without that, but they were perfectly fine with that. So here it is. You'll notice it is already partly stripped. I got it off a buddy that derbies in the area, Carl. Shout out to Carl if he ever stumbles into these videos. But yeah, not something I typically do. It was actually last fall. Carl said, hey, post online, got this car, anybody want it? He was just asking a couple hundred for it, and I said, ooh, it's big. I like the bigger V6s, because several of the derby promoters, they throw the 6s and the 4s together. And if you've got a big, fairly good running 6, I mean, you're just at an advantage. You can see the back end a little bit unique, not only with the length of the trunk as the convertible top needs to fold in, but I'll show you here in a second the other unique aspects with the motor nap. But yeah, I ended up getting off them. It had giant, I think they were 16-inch aluminum rims, really nice. The tires were almost like new. I actually posted and sold those for just $100. Probably could have sold them for maybe 150, but I was trying to just kind of sell them quick, which I did. And these tires, that's off Ford. Would have been a Ford Fusion, the first car or the first summer I ran. I've kept those, ran it last year in the Buick, and then these are just the spares. They fit on it, so I put them on it, sold the other tires, kind of brought that total loss, if you will, down to about $100 with what I'll get for scrap for this, even without a title. So that was why I went with it, even though I typically am not a fan of leaving cars through the winter just because they're old. They already barely run. But I did it with this one, and I did it last year with one, and we ended up with a second with that car, even though it didn't really run the best. But you can see a little bit interesting here. It's got all the different stuff. I believe that one there is for the sound system, but this one here, and here's some fuses here, I believe are tied to that retracting roof. So my thought is we're just going to, by the way, I apologize for the sniffles. The allergies are just kicking up here. We're in May. But we're going to just try to unbolt and move those in. Hopefully they'll reach all the way inside this kind of rear seat wall here, the front of the trunk. But we'll see. But I don't want to unplug anything because I know nothing about it. And I'm like, man, I can only imagine if you start unplugging stuff or something like that, it's going to go haywire. So that's the plan. Glass, of course, you can see already the driver's side windows removed, this side window's removed. Actually, this door, I don't know if Carl did it, the guy before, but that actually doesn't have the door handle. So I'm going to try to see if I can get to the lever and just pull it to open this door up so I can get to it. But yeah, again, partly stripped. Big car, you can see. I'm not sure if it was in an accident. That's how she came. And again, show here as we pop the hood. See if I can get it real quick. The core support on this one isn't really existing. And what I mean by that is usually, at least in the derby cars I've done, the core support's kind of sitting right under that front part of the body, and it's kind of one piece. Well, this one you can see it's completely in front of that. And these little mounts are in essence it. Now it is sitting on kind of like an extension piece. So usually this is where, at least, and again, all the cars I'd see, you'd see the core support with the radiator, and this one is projected forward, and on top of that it's already got the rebar there creased in. So not the best of circumstances, but you know, derby skill, show your derby skill rather, and see if you can keep that front end clean, not to mention the wheels. So inside, I mean, it runs fairly well, you know. Again, for an old derby car, you can see again the lights are off, and we'll just take the battery box out, splice into those wires, run in once the windshield's out, and that's pretty much it up front. Just spray foam around the outside there. Again, these wires here will just unplug the sensors and pull them up in, kind of typically what I do. This here, the kind of air intake kind of tube running across, we'll just right there take this off and put our kind of chicken wire there to make sure nothing gets sucked into there. But otherwise, that's it. Now you see here a concerning spot, this right here, the inside of this strut, which I can only imagine is going to make that weaker. It is kind of rusted through there. Now over here, it doesn't seem to be like that. And again, you can see, I don't know if it was Carl or somebody, kind of nicking different stuff. None of it is impacting the way the motor runs. So again, I'm just like, hey, I'll leave it there. All right, so continuing here, you see we've changed locations from back in the back along the woods up here to this old cement pad that's all broken up. So I real close to the house and can kind of more easily get up on jacks and stands and things like that. So inside we've got stripped. Again, wasn't much to it. This door here, you can see this glass window still there, it's stuck. This glass window is still here. I haven't got to those yet. Got the other door one out though, and that one was already out. So just kind of cut out the inside, took out different stuff. The seat is just stuck there, so I cut right up to it with the carpet. It is what it is. In the trunk, I kicked my bottle. You can see here, this is the hard top kind of system, compression system, I guess. I don't know. And then here's the fuses. So again, I just took them off and they're sitting here. I'm going to feed them into the inside of the car and then bolt them down if I can, or I'll just take a bunch of zip ties and kind of tie them off. And then this trunk, it starts shallow and gets deeper. So I'm going to try to bang along the side and crimp up so that she folds hopefully a little bit more up instead of down. Gonna run a stock tank. I was thinking about maybe moving it, but it's so rusty underneath that, I mean, not only the time you put into it, but you just don't know with this thing. And it's in front of the axles. Fuel lines are fine. I mean, there's not really much of a back end. That's why I'm hoping it would fold up. So it's just kind of smacking against the rear axles. Just kind of not plan on running too hard, at least right at the start while everything's going crazy. But once the derby starts, anybody that's derby know everything kind of hits the fan. That's why it's such a good time. But yeah, we're stripped inside. So now we're going to do a little bit of stuff just to the motor here. Just took off that breather. Gonna loop the tranny lines, which are right over in there. It's kind of hard to see. And then this battery box here I'll take out, and that's mostly it. I am going to take out this radiator as well though, I guess, because it's just sitting up here. Get the wires and everything inside the kind of frame rail, which doesn't exist, or excuse me, the caution board, which doesn't exist in this car. And then I'm going to loop the radiator line right out of here and then right back into there. So we'll fill her up with some water and some Downy and call her a day pretty much. So before we call it a night here cleaning up, just to show, we have successfully opened up the front end there. Just unplugged the radiator fans, the lines there, the tranny on the one side, the other side right here is your these two guys, just rubber hoses. That's for your AC condenser, I believe it is. I just careful cutting through them. Sometimes they have a little like spray out, but cut those are worthless. The tranny lines, you can see right there, we have just looped. And again, all I do, take one of these guys, buy it from your AutoZone, your parts store, cut the two lines, try to keep as little of the training fluid coming out, just a little bit comes out, and then put the clamps on there, get it good and tight, slide them together. That way she's looping out and right back in, not going out to the radiator, where if you get punched in the radiator, which is likely going to happen, especially in a stock car, you are leaking all your training out and you're just sitting there with nothing grabbing. So that's taken care of. We'll clean up the wires up front and in the motor. Just going to clean up this guy. I'm going to probably cut it right here to leave that little kind of snorkel on. I took it all the way off and it was like too much air was getting to it right away. It was kind of like cutting out a little bit. Put that back on, it was fine. So we'll do that and just clean up inside, but she's pretty much ready up front. Again, we'll clean up the battery box there, but yeah, we're gonna run her looped. Didn't mention that. As you can see, took the radiator hose and looped up and in. Has a little bit of a pinch here, but I mean, there's gonna be a little bit of one there just as it is. I'll wrap, I have like a metal coil piece I'll wrap around that, or a heat guard, to try to keep a little bit of heat off, but you know, all the more stock runs, that should be fine. And those radiator hoses, keep those. You can put your wires inside them too, kind of protect them more at the corners where you might get hit, or around like the fuse boxes. I do that as well. So calling her for a day, but successful. Just a quick update now. We pulled her outside here, had a little bit extra time. It's a beautiful day, let her cook in the sun. Just cut out the windshield, drilled out the hood, cut out the hood, scoop there to let the fire and safety crew and everything in there took care of all the messy stuff here in one fell swing. So windshield's out, had this door and this window here, was able to unbolt and get out, broke that one. So the glass is entirely out. It's mostly swept up. The sun's going down here. We're gonna pull her inside, but she is almost good to go, really. Just a couple tidying up things and throw a paint job on. So just one final look at her here. We a couple additions and then it's pretty much it. She's ready for the paint job and a couple fine tuning things we'll do before we make our kind of ready for the trailer look. But you see up top here, thought about welding, but actually talking with my father-in-law, Mark Parker, shout out to him. He doesn't have a MIG welder, so his stick welder, he didn't think it'd work, it'd be too hot. And he said, you know what, why don't you just bolt down through? We have these old metal plates anyways. I said, you know, that's actually a really good idea and I can do that. So what I did is, these are just old like steel pieces or metal pieces. I'm not sure exactly what they're made of, but they're metal and pretty tough. But put one on the windshield and then one on, again, it's a hardtop convertible. And while it is mounted, these should be even more kind of stable to it. And the guys I asked about said they'd like that. So that's it. Inside's all cleaned up. The only really big thing to add inside, you can see there we have all that clutter from the trunk, the pretty much engine and everything for the, that was back here in the corner for the retractable hardtop. That I was able to get slid in through there. And again, with stock, I usually don't like pulling wires back here because you might just blow a fuse or something. Again, I just don't know enough about it. This guy here, it's got two grounds here, so I'll slide it in that piece too so that the wire does come out and back in. Not really anything I can do about that. And that right there, I think is an amp. Just in the car, it's gonna stay there. But I'm hopefully gonna press the back trunk up a little bit. They shouldn't have a problem with that, so that hopefully she folds up and in just a little. Gives me a little bit more kind of back end to toughen up as I hit, because you can see she's not very big in the back end. But yeah, the only other thing I got to do is I'm going to put the battery box right here inside. The fuel lines run right up through that crevice there, so I'm going to put them just on the inside of that so I don't, again, have to mess with any of that. It's going to be a stock, and I'm just going to secure these with zip ties to the car so they're not clanging around, and that is it. So we're going to throw a paint job on her. Came up with, again, it's the end of the school, so we're going to see if we can get a school bus as it's the end of the school year. So just one final brief look here under the hood before we lock it down and finish it up. You see we already got about half the paint job on. So had the big battery box plastic there, kind of was sitting here with the fuse box sitting there, and then this here is where the battery sat, the battery box, and then you had, I think that's your computer that was locked into it. So I had to bust part of it out after I unbolted it to slide it out so that we can get this fuse box further in. And then again, I'll use probably a whole can of your insulation foam spray, $4 at Walmart, not too bad. And I'll fill that outside of the fuse box with it. And then same thing in here, we'll clean in. See, I have the electrical lines ready to pull inside. I'll wrap them up, zip tie them, get this computer or whatever it is stationary too, and then I'll use another foam can of foam spray to go around in front of that to get in front of those wires as much as I can with something, because I mean, again, there's not much up here in stock in general, and this one doesn't even have the radiator normal core support. So get it in as far as I can and just try to protect those wheels, and if I run it in this class, it's going to be taller cars. And then the battery lines, again, shout out to Justin Hoffman. You ever stumble into these videos? So I used to cut my battery terminals, both the positive and negative, in the car, and then I'd splice in with my U-bolt and my battery line that then run into the car to my battery. But he said, no, don't cut them. He said, just run the U-bolt through the battery terminal there and use the U-bolt to bolting it down, and then I'll use my black electrical tape to tape them up good so no wiring or anything's showing, and then I'll secure these lines as well. And yeah, a lot easier and a lot cleaner, and you don't lose any blood or cut yourself with having to deal with the wiring. So that'll work out too. And then the other thing is, here's the kind of snorkel that went to the air box from the throttle body. I'll cut that down so it just kind of curls around a little bit. I just took it off there to clean up the wiring. So that is it. Secure the front, and then she's as good as she can be, and we'll see what she's gonna get. So here's I'm about to spray foam, and you won't be able to tell anything. So I've got, again, All the wires pulled up and in as far as it can go. Again, stock wiring, I don't change anything around. So that right there is, again, kind of loosely secured with zip ties. I like them to be able to move a little bit because, you know, as you're getting pushed, you don't want something so tight that it's gonna rip it apart. And I'll put spray foam again underneath and all the way up the side, all the way in the front here. This guy right here, I think it might be something, I'm sorry, a little something of the traction or something like that. It was mounted here, and I know oftentimes they mount on the frame rails like something tied to the transmission or something. I don't know, some sort of little computer. But I got that unbolted and up in, and again, I'll spray foam in front of the wiring here as well, as the throttle body coming out there, that air filter will be there. So that is her before we put the spray foam on and we're ready to roll up front.